Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back in with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Gooner Talk podcast, our weekly breakdown of the fallout, usually quite positive at the moment, but once again we return to our usual programmed or scheduled programming, should I say, with Arsenal not managing to pick up all 3 points against let's be honest, a very decent Sheffield United side that have played very well under Chris Wilder this season. But that's not the whole story, and we're going to go into plenty of the intricacies of that game and look ahead, of course, to the end of the transfer window and ahead to our game against Chelsea in midweek, which takes a lot more precedence than it probably would have done had we have picked up the 3 points today. But I'm joined by two wonderful people, although they don't look too happy to be here right now, if you can see from their faces. First off, it's Webby. How you doing, mate?
I'm very well. Thanks for having me on a gloomy Sunday.
Yes, I'm sure you are joined by plenty of people that are buzzing to be watching this today. John, how you doing, fella?
Yeah, not bad considering, I guess.
That's probably about right. So fair enough. We're going to jump straight into things. There is a very obvious thing that I want to talk about, but we will build up to that, and we'll sort of start at the beginning. There was changes. Webster, I mean, we couldn't have Aubameyang in and won't have him in for the next two games. And that meant that Martinelli was brought into the starting lineup, along with some other changes as well. Mustafi came in because Sokratis was ill, and Saka came in at left-back without Kolasinac being there either. Overall, do you think Arteta made the right decisions, bearing in mind the absentees that we had?
Yeah, I think he did. I think if I was in that position, I would have probably made the same sort of calls. Mustafi, well, I wish he wasn't in our squad really, but until we get backups, it is what it is. So we've got to use the resource that we've got. Martinelli, I think, is a shining light of the season. He's the one really good thing that we've got going on with us at the moment that we can take pride in. And again, he showed it. With his goal and how agile and fluid he was yesterday. Unfortunately, though, that's kind of where the shining light stops, because we just wasn't quick enough yesterday. We were slow and just not at the races as much as we should have been going forward.
Yeah, no, it's a fair assessment. We weren't quick enough. We didn't create enough chances, and that's been pretty much the story of our season so far. Even with Arteta coming in, things have looked slightly better, but there's only so much you can do. I mean, I remember talking to Lee Judges about this, saying that you can't really polish a turd. Is probably the best way of doing things. You might be able to gleam it up a bit, but you certainly can't make it look too attractive right now. But we are seeing some improvements. John, I mean, the same old mistakes is happening again. The defensive side of things. Sokratis wasn't there, and actually Sokratis would have been the better players under Arteta, I felt. I think he's been one of the people that have taken some of the biggest strides since Arteta came in. Mustafi came in, and I actually thought he was okay for 80 minutes. I discussed that on the show after the game. I thought he was all right, because one thing that he does give you, other than a defensive mistake here and there, is actually his distribution of the ball is a lot better than Sokratis's. And when you've got him next to David Luiz, you've got two centre-backs that can pass the ball around. But I felt personally we relied on that too much. We passed the ball way too passively, passing back to David Luiz and Mustafi to try and find a pass themselves, instead of relying on our midfield for creativity. How much do you agree with that statement?
I don't. Well, first of all, I don't know how great of a game Mustafi had. I thought he made I think the passing in general was not as sharp from all the players this game that we've seen a lot. We saw a lot of misplaced passes and in a lot of dangerous areas that was kind of uncharacteristic, if you can even call that at this point in the season with Arteta's kind of style that he has. That being said, though, there was still a lot of positive. And that's kind of why I'm upset now, which is better than why I was upset before. I'm more upset because I think that we could have gotten something from that game. I think that there were some mistakes, but there's still a lot to take away from it. In terms of the center backs, obviously Sokratis, Luiz is the main one. I don't think Mustafi would be playing if it weren't for whatever illness Sokratis had going in. But I do agree with your assessment of his distribution being better than Sokratis. I think that usually when it's just the pairing of Sokratis and Luiz, we only get it from Luiz, but we were able to get those passes out to Ed, to Saka or whoever was there on the left at the time, Martinelli a lot of the times. So that was good. Another positive I thought was Saka, and I'm sure we'll get to that a little bit later on. But for someone who's not a left back, I mean, he's a left back, so he looked really, really promising, and I'm assuming we'll get to that a little bit more. But overall, to answer your question, I tend to agree. I think his game wasn't that great, Mustafi, but I think that the passing all around throughout the team wasn't that great. So take it, take whatever you can.
Yeah, the thing with Mustafi is that, like, I felt like he's been put into the team because there's part of us that still wants to try and get a fee for him. We had Holding on the bench. If we wanted to play Holding, we could have done, but Holding hasn't really been too great in the games he's played so far this season since returning from his knee injury. And I feel like if we play Mustafi, there is murmurings that we are still sort of like down a market and you've got Mustafi on a stall trying to say how good he is. But I think that is still something the club are very much open to, is moving him on. But when you think about it now, we've sent Mavropanos out on loan. Chambers is out until the foreseeable future. Holding's not looking too great. Socrates is ill, and we have to resort to Mustafi as our next backup centre-back. That's really concerning. And for me, that makes me think, we'll come onto the transfer window in a bit, but it makes me think, are we really that on it in this window as much as we could have been? We'll talk about some of the transfers in a bit, but I just felt like we're not as prepared as we necessarily should be right now. Let's look at the midfield, Webby. This maintenance, or maintaining rather, of Ozil, Torreira, and Granit Xhaka. It's so obvious how desperately reliant I feel we are on Torreira playing in that deep role of mopping things up, being the little terrier. And if he has a couple of off moments, or if he's not in the game and he's not with it for 20 minutes or so, we can get hurt. And Mesut Ozil as well, he just had one of those games that he has where he can look brilliant one week and everyone's like, see, this is the Mesut Ozil that we've always wanted. And then there's a couple of games in a row, like we've seen against Sheffield United, against Crystal Palace, where he hasn't been able to influence the game as much as maybe he should be able to. How are you seeing us with this midfield right now, and how much can Arteta realistically get from it?
I think they've been so much better under Arteta, this midfield. I mean, they really have. I mean, Xhaka, I'll hold my hands up. The first one to, criticise him. And, I wasn't a fan. I didn't like his conduct, a few months ago. But, as he's been a professional in the way that he's come back, he's stuck with it. And his performances have been a lot better under Arteta, and you can really see the difference. Torreira is just, what Emery was doing playing him further up the pitch is mind-boggling. I mean, how you can be a top coach and be playing a player so obviously out of his position is beyond me. But with Torreira there at CDM, we are incredibly reliant on him because he's a force of nature. In that CDM role. The amount of times that I've seen him do last-ditch tackles or just be there at the right time, at the right place to clear the ball away. His sense for danger is incredible. He just has a knack of always showing up at exactly the right time in exactly the right place. And as soon as he comes off the pitch, that's a worry. Because without him there protecting the back four, given the fact that we know that we've got a fragile back four, it really weakens the team. As for Ozil, this is the problem, isn't it? This is the hot and cold that everyone complains about. We all love Ozil and how fantastic he is as a ball player, and his creativity and the magical things he can do with the ball when he's on form, but it's the other side of his game which frustrates everyone else. And you don't get this with some of the other top creative players. If you look at the Man City team and you look at how fantastic some of their creative players are, even when they're having an off game, they can still dig in and do something for the team. Unfortunately for Ozil, because his attributes from a defensive point of view are so incredibly weak, if he's having an off game going forward and being creative, which is his main attribute, that's it. If he's having an off game, he's got nothing, and it just disintegrates. And I think that's a real problem, because that means if he's starting in the 11, he has to have a good game. Otherwise, it completely nullifies our attack.
It does, and we lack so much creativity, as you say, without someone there in the middle of the park trying to work the channels, trying to play the passes in behind. Because especially with Lacazette, without Aubameyang to be that guy who's going to be the poacher, and you've got a striker in Lacazette who's so off form and so devoid of any sort of confidence and taking of chances, that we haven't really got anyone to, besides I feel Martinelli, that is that determined player to go and take the game by the scruff of the neck and attack them. And I didn't feel like Martinelli, bar the goal, had an amazing game. I thought he was sort of kept out of the game for quite large periods, to be fair. But he was the guy in the right position at the right time. John, this young Brazilian, his goal scoring record is, for an 18-year-old in his first season, is mad. There was initial thoughts that he wouldn't be going off with the Brazil squad, but I was listening to, I think it was Radio 5 Live, in the car yesterday after the game, and they seem to think that there are discussions happening now about him possibly going off with that squad. I'm not sure how accurate that is. Maybe someone in the chat box can give us some more insight into that whilst we're chatting about it. But John, Martinelli coming in, how without him, we probably lose that game, because I don't see anyone else in that team who has the capability and the confidence right now to score goals.
Yeah, and I think that comes back to the question you asked earlier about the midfield. And I think that our biggest problem right now is lack of goals from the midfield. Without talking about Lacazette and his kind of lack of goals form, I think that when you consider the auxiliary things that he's providing to us, I don't know if you noticed it, but the second Lacazette went off, our midfield started getting run through. It was almost as if the second what he does, and I mentioned this on this podcast many times, that kind of gets on a little bit under the radar, is he acts as another midfielder. He'll drop back and he'll provide, with his back to goal, not near the box, but like almost right in front of the center line. So he once he left, we missed that dearly, and I thought we weren't able to get the ball into attacking areas. So that being said, going back to your question about Martinelli and the fact that he looked like the only one that could actually get us through that game, I think that with Lacazette's goal drought right now, and the fact that Ozil's not going to be the one scoring, and it looks like Pepe will get a goal here and there, but it's certainly not a reliable goal scorer yet. I don't know if it's a confidence thing or what's going on in that, but we certainly need something from the midfield. And you could look at teams like Liverpool, for example, and I'm hesitant to compare us to them, especially after the performance they put on today. Sense that their center forward isn't the one actually scoring all their goals. If you actually look at the amount of goals that Lacazette has scored this season and Firmino scored this season, Lacazette has 5 goals. I think Firmino has 7. I think he would have had 8, but it got disallowed today. And last season, Lacazette scored more, even though he didn't score a lot. The problem that we have that Liverpool don't, one of the problems that we have that Liverpool don't, is that we just don't have those goals coming from auxiliary areas. It's pretty much Aubameyang. And you look at our goal scorers, it's either Aubameyang scoring a goal or our defender scoring a goal in a set piece or something like that. We don't have any. We only have one side of the wing. Our center forward's not scoring. Ozil's not going to be that player to go and bag you a bunch of goals. Wenger tried that; it didn't work out. He's just not that kind of. I think he could. I don't. But once again, it goes to whether he's feeling it that day, which is just kind of the player he is, unfortunately. So I think it's an issue. I think that Martinelli looks very promising in that regard because he certainly has that knack for a goal. I don't know if it's something that's going to go away for him, and it's just kind of him, bright-eyed and new in the Premier League and on the new team and everything like that. But I just look at the way he plays, and he just has this natural finishing ability, and it's not something that looks like it's going to go away. So, it's very promising in that regard. I think he's going to do well for Brazil. I think that's exactly the kind of player that they like, these young, I wouldn't say flashy because he's not really flashy, but just technically gifted with an eye for goal. And I think when you're looking at the fact that how young he is, I mean, it's a player that I want to stick around here. And I think that it's a little concerning that our goals are only coming from the left wing or our defenders. We need to get a goal scoring midfielder, whether it's Ceballos or we have to go into the market for one. We are not going to progress anymore, and that could be just a factor of the fact that Arteta has been so focused on the defense, which absolutely has shored up recently. If you look at the expected goals against that we've had this season, we pretty much half them. I think it was 1.45 that we used to have goals against to like around 1 goals against, so almost half. And when you look at shots faced per game, we used to be around 15. I think now we're around 10 or 11. So we've absolutely taken less shots, and the ones that we do allow, they're less quality shots. And I think that's where Arteta focused on, and I think he's working his way up. I'm guessing, but maybe it'll work its way up through the midfield and to the attack, because we've seen the midfield improve, we've seen the defense improve. Now it's just a question of scoring goals, and I know that's a big. It has a lot to do with confidence of the players, which we're kind of low on right now. But it's promising, and I think that if anyone could fix it, Arteta can. We'll see if that works, but we'll see.
Yeah, no, I think that chance creation is certainly going to be something that gradually changes depending on the business that we get done next summer as well, and who stays and who goes, and the types of player that Arteta will want to bring in. In terms of bringing back the chat to Martinelli as well, Avon, one of our members, said that it's not a FIFA sanctioned competition and AFC aren't obliged to release Martinelli for it, is what I heard on Arseblog. And that I knew that was true, and I know that there's discussions based on what BBC 5 Live was saying, that there are discussions set for this week as to what is going to happen. By the way, boys, Avon was able to put your emojis in our live chat, which is good to see. They don't show up in the chat at the moment on the screen right now. I'm going to get onto StreamYard about trying to set that up, but they do in the chat box. Yeah, they're looking good. So there's that positivity that's come out of the weekend. Webby, in terms of sort of the forward line, then we've touched on Martinelli there. We've touched slightly on Lacazette. The other guy in the game was Pepe. Now, before we come on to the big talking point of the game, I'm not quite sure what he's bringing right now. He brings a lot of running. He brings technical ability, but he doesn't often beat a player in the point at which it matters. He can beat a player on the halfway line or 2/3 down the pitch, but when it comes to the final chance, the final product, or finally getting around that last guy, he doesn't seem to quite have it. How, on a scale of 1 to I regret signing him, how concerned are you about Pepe?
6.
Okay.
He is a great talent. We know he's a great talent. We've seen everything he's done in the past. But bringing that into the Premier League is a whole different kettle of fish. We know this. It takes people, it takes these players sometimes a little bit longer to adapt to the Premier League. Sometimes they never adapt to the Premier League. Sometimes it's just too much of a tough league, and it's too physical and et cetera, et cetera. I'm not suggesting that that's going to be the case with Pepe, but certainly at the moment it is. Pepe, for me, has shown glimpses of being absolutely fabulous and worth every penny. Unfortunately, 90% of the time, he doesn't show anything at all. He loses the ball. He doesn't really have a great defensive drive. He does try and help, actually. Arteta's tried to bring that into his game. It's not like that's a natural part of his game. Going forward, I don't see a lot from his right foot. I keep on wondering if he'd be better on the left, because his right foot's only pretty much good for standing on at the moment, because his crosses and that with it has been dreadful. So he's all left-footed, which is fine if you're going to cut him, but it's so obvious. Like, it's just red all the time. Don't get me wrong. When he gets the chance, he had the chance against Man United, got us 1-0 up. He's got a couple of cracking free kicks, a couple of months ago or whatnot. So we know that the talent, the raw talent, is there. I'm just concerned that it's not Arteta's player, so it wasn't a big money buy from Arteta. So it may not be the type of player that Arteta would have wanted. And B, it just might be too tough for him. He might just not be able to replicate the incredible seasons that he's had from the French league. So we'll have to wait and see. At the moment, he's not doing it for me. He's not gotten. I think everything that what Arteta's trying to do, in my opinion, is pretty much replicate what the fantastic work they did over at City, and that's obvious, right? Because that's where he's learned his trade under Pep, and he's going to take so much of that away with him and try and bring it into the Arsenal squad. And a lot of that is that team is so aggressive. He wants them to be so aggressive and press the ball so high up the pitch for such a long amount of time. And that means working all the way back and all the way forward. And Lacazette, as rubbish as he's been in front of goal lately, is actually a really good example of how he's changed his game to what Arteta wants, because he's working all the way back. I see him sprinting all the way back from the front line, almost to the edge of the penalty area, and winning the ball and giving us the ball, the possession back to then come back. Unfortunately, he's been absolutely useless in front of goal, which is kind of what his main point of being, centre striker. Yeah. But coming back to Pepe, I don't see that with Pepe. He is working back, but he's just not got enough for me at the moment. And that's probably why, to all of our frustration, he's not been playing a lot. And everyone keeps on saying, we see the starting lineup for weeks and weeks and weeks. Everyone's like, where's Pepe? Where's Pepe? Why are they not playing Pepe? Emery wasn't playing him that much. Ljungberg didn't play him. Arteta only started playing him. He didn't play him at first. And everyone was getting frustrated about it. And everyone's going, well, what do they see in training then? Like, how's Pepe training? Because something must be wrong for him not to be starting, given the fact that we spent so much money on him. And I think that the real honesty is he's just not cutting it at the moment. And he really needs to, get this season under his belt, have a long, hard summer training with him, and just maybe just needs to up his game or adapt. I think it's more just adapting.
I think he's really struggling, one, because I don't think he likes the system of the constant pressing. You can tell that from his demeanour on the pitch, and I think that does harm him a bit. But I think the main problem is that we brought him from a side in Lille that hit teams so quickly on the counter. Mm-hmm. He was able to get in behind a lot more, was able to get more central much more quickly, and was able for his really good finishing ability. He scored a lot of penalties last season as well, which obviously boosted his scoring stats. You still got a scorer. There's nothing to take away from the guy. But I think the fact that we don't really sign too many players that play in possession-based teams. We sign players at the moment that look great individually, but we haven't really considered the impact they'll have when they sign. And if you sign someone like Pepe, who absolutely thrives on a counter-attacking style, then you're going to get a great load of output from him. I'll take the example of Timo Werner from RB Leipzig. When RB Leipzig first came up to the Bundesliga, they were basically looked upon as the new whipping boys because they come up from the second tier of the German league. And they managed to catch teams so much with the likes of Timo Werner on the counter and Marcel Ceballos and these players because these teams were just attacking them and leaving so much space in behind because they didn't think they were going to get attacked. And then the following season, after they realised, Timo Werner came out and said, we're finding it a lot more tough now because teams have wised up. They know that they can't hit us. They can't just attack us because we'll hit them back. And they play a much more, let's give you the ball and we'll hit you on the counter. Whereas that mirrors into Pepe signing is that now he plays in a team where he has to make things happen, not by hitting them on the counter, but by taking players on, beating a man, playing the ball. And he does keep onto the ball for a little bit too long. He doesn't know when to quite rightly play the right pass at the right time. And that will come with time. And I agree with your 6, Webby, about concern. I ran a 6-7 because it's way too early. The season is a write-off in terms of the league. We've got to get this system sorted. I have faith in Arteta that he's worked with the likes of Sterling and Sane, and he knows how to get the best out of some of these wingers that are technical footballers and can work in possession-based systems, and hoping that he can transform that style from what we've seen. The only differences with Sterling and Sane is that I feel that most of their senior career has been in playing in teams which have been a possession-based side. You look at Sterling has always been with, after he joined from QPR to Liverpool, was always a team that was in the possession of the ball a lot more. Same when he moved to Man City. And Sane signed from Schalke at a very, very young age. And then was in a very, very possession-based team under the best coach in the world, and then joined by the best assistant coach, which is now our coach. So there are other things and other factors, but I think that your level of concern mirrors mine at the moment. And hopefully by the end of the season, that will be enough experience that over the summer, because he didn't really get a pre-season under his belt, that he can really change things. Now, that's sort of the player analysis side of things done. We come on to the point of the show where we have been building up to the whole time and somehow I've not been managed to talk about. And that is the VAR penalty incident of the game. Now, whilst the lads are going to go hell for leather on this, I want you in the chat box to just put the words pen or no pen, because I'm interested to get what your views are. Just simply those couple of words. Just let us know. We'll take a quick poll of a glance and see what you're feeling in the chat. Webby, I'm going to start with you, mate. You said that it was not a penalty at the time that it happened in our chat. Do you want to go through the explanation for that?
I think you find I said it. I thought it was a pen.
Oh, it was pen. Sorry,
I didn't think it was blatant. So in the chat, John and yourself thought it was a blatant pen all day long, every day,
totally
100% on your life. Put the mortgage on it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I said, I think it was a pen as well. So before everyone gives me a really hard time,
he didn't. He said it wasn't a pen.
I feel like it got there eventually, but
I don't think. It's frustrating because at different angles on still shots, it really does look different. So if you see it from one angle, it looks like absolutely 100% nailed on, and you can't believe that it hasn't been given. From the side or in real time, you see the leg come back, like the defender trying to get out of the way. He didn't get out of the way. That's why it's a pen. He tries to pull back the leg. And in my opinion, it was played for a little bit. Pep kind of knew what he was doing. He's a good attacking player, like that. So he knows when he's going to try and go for a pen. And I do think everyone boo Webby. I'm sorry. I think he played for it. And I think that's what I'm doing. Lads, I'm telling you now. That's being given a penalty every day of the week. If he didn't he just started going to ground a little bit too early, in my opinion. And by the time the contact was made, he was already on his way to ground. Now, it was still a pen. I still think it was a pen. But I think that VAR didn't give it, and that idiot, Mike Dean, didn't give it because they thought he was going to ground too easy. And that's my opinion. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just going through the chat box as well, just highlighting everyone's, no matter what their thoughts were on it, whether they thought it was a pen or not. I'll come to where I think on it in a minute. John,
okay.
As Webby says, you were with me.
It was.
I think my words are in the chat. Blatant pen, no debate.
Yeah, and I guess it just shows you could debate about anything, but I agree. Yeah. I agree 100%. That's a blatant penalty, and here's the bigger issue. Penalty, not a penalty. First of all, the side note, VAR took what, like half a second to figure out that wasn't a penalty? Absolutely ludicrous, first of all. VAR has been ludicrous. I can't even think of the word, ludicrously inconsistent. And the decisions on these kind of penalties have been ludicrously inconsistent. And it's not the first time this has happened. You look at Vardy's penalty that he had when Monreal stuck his leg out in the exact same way, and then he went for the challenge. He went into it like he was looking for the penalty. And I remember Arsenal fans at the time going, "Oh, look how great he is! Like, look, he's getting that penalty." This is when we were like linked to him at that point. So it was if that was the only one, it's not. I can think of Chambers versus Zaha, similar one. When Zaha went down in the box looking for the contact, penalty was given, and to not even take more than a second to look at that penalty is absolutely against the whole reason why VAR exists in the first place. VAR exists to analyze the decision and they get it right. And I don't understand how they look at that and say that's not a penalty. And if they do, I don't understand how they coalesce that and they justify it with all the other decisions throughout the league where a similar challenge is made. He's not even looking when he sticks his leg out. If you're in the box as a defender and you stick your leg out like that right in front of a player playing a ball forward, you're risking a penalty. That's what happens. And there's no rule. You look at Rule 12, the Law 12 in the FA, which is about misconduct. There's nothing against the rules about initiating contact to win a penalty. It can't be an offensive contact. It can't be anything. It can't be like a dive. But if you going forward in your normal stride, you see a defender sticking his leg out, you're not required to stop. You can keep going, even if that means that you're going to win the penalty, even if it means that you go down easily, whatever. It's a penalty. And I think you agree with that, but I don't understand why the refs don't give that as a penalty. It makes absolutely no sense. And like I said, if it were just this, that would be one thing. Okay, human error, whatever, which is what VAR, by the way, is supposed to get rid of to an extent. But this same call is made multiple times.
The problem I've got with it, John, is I totally agree with you on the consistency. On a consistent level, that is outrageous. It's outrageous. If you're going on previous examples, on previous games, and that it just doesn't weigh up at all. So, right, I knew I was coming on tonight, and I'd already had a row with John last night about it. I was upset. It was going back and forth. I've asked everyone that I met today whether they thought it was a penalty or not. And I'm telling you, it's about a 60-40 split on people thinking it's a penalty. Now,
it's not in the chat.
All right. Were they Sheffield fans? I mean, maybe if they're Sheffield fans.
It's a penalty. Anyway, I think it's a penalty. So I agree with you. I'm just saying that that's a bad still shot. Why are you
Why? He's not even looking. He's not even looking. He's not even looking at the player.
I'll put both of them up. This is not the one that I think is the most obvious, but then there is this one, which is the one that Matt is talking about. So
he's not even looking. He's just sticking his leg out. That's a penalty, man. You can't. I don't care if he runs right into his leg.
It is. And we all agree. We've all said that we agree it's a pen. So stop having a go at Matt in the chat.
No, I'm not.
I'm not saying you.
I'm just saying that on a consistent level, that's wrong. VAR is absolutely flawed beyond belief, because how John's completely right in saying how they could disregard that in a few seconds was outrageous, because the amount of offsides and red cards and tackles that they've taken 2, 3, 4 minutes to analyse, and they gave that no more than 5 seconds. They replayed it like a couple of times, like, nah, fuck it, won a penalty. I totally think it's outrageous. That still shot there, to me, is the only way that it gets off with not being a pen, because, in my opinion, that still shot there shows that Pepe is already on his way to the floor by the time he gets contact. Now, so I'm just trying to think of both sides of the coin here. I'm trying to think how I can be so stupid up at the VR centre and be the assistant ref and not give. What has he seen that everyone here on this chat and us three in this group?
Okay, so you're playing devil's advocate here. You're thinking.
Yeah,
all right. So here's my question for you: what's more likely, that they, which we know it was only like a half a second that they took to look at this, that they looked at that, they looked at this angle, and they said, you know what? After thorough analysis, this is not a penalty, or did they just mess it up? I think the latter is more likely. I think that they barely looked at this. I think they just messed up. I think they just made a bad decision. And if it was the only one they made this season, that'd be one thing. But it's happened again and again with challenges like that. When we can go back and forth about the Aubameyang red card, like, because I posted how many examples of similar challenges that don't get penalty, that don't get red cards for, or not even a foul. The scissor kick on Pepe, like, it's nonsense. Some of the decisions that VAR has made this season. And I see what you're saying from a devil's advocate perspective. Like, maybe this is why, but like within that quick, that's how long they took to look at it. It's just they did not give this analysis that it needed. And then what the hell is the point? These are important decisions that they need to make. I mean, think about where we would be right now, considering what happened to everyone else in the league had they given that penalty and we scored it. It would have been a whole different. And look, I'm not saying that we played great enough that this penalty should offset the mistakes that we made and the fact that we conceded late on. I'm not saying that, but it's an important decision, and they need to give it the time. At the very least, do your job. That's all I'm saying.
And this is where I got frustrated about the whole thing, because I didn't think that our performance yesterday was validated 3 points. I thought a draw was probably a fair result. I don't think we was good enough yesterday. I don't think we were sharp enough going forward. I don't think we had any real sort of bite. I thought we was toothless, to be honest, going forward. We was slow at passing the ball. So as it pains me to say it, that I think that a draw wasn't far off being the right result. Yeah. But then we've got this VAR decision which went against us. And then it brings up all this, we was robbed. And I just think to myself, yeah, we probably was robbed, but we should be beating this lot at home in open play in 90 minutes. Other teams don't have to rely on VAR to win games. And yeah, other teams get more decisions go our way than most. And, we are bullied by these absolute pillocks like Mike Dean. But at the end of the day, other teams out there, your Man Cities and your Liverpools, as much as they have had a lot of more VAR decisions go their way, more often than not, they're beating teams in 90 minutes. And if they get something go against them, or if a decision goes against them and the other team get a goal, it doesn't matter because they're 3-0 up anyway. And so it's not making this impact. Whereas we can go, it's cost us 11 points. Yeah, because every game is that much on a knife edge because we're not good enough at the moment that it's costing us points. We shouldn't need, that prick Mike Dean to give us that penalty before the game. And that's the end of it. And so this whole VAR debate frustrated. I was at Crystal Palace and the red card. I didn't think it was a red card. Everyone else thought it was a red card. I thought it was a mistimed tackle. I thought the still image from Aubameyang made that tackle look horrendous. And yet, in real time, it was just a mistimed tackle. His foot weren't even that high. He catches him bad, and he's
it is a red card.
And then I see 3 or 4 tackles after that game that was worse than Aubameyang's.
That's the thing, though. That's the big thing, is because I do think it's a red with Aubameyang. I know what you're saying, and in slow motion it looks horrific, and slow motion always looks horrific.
It's really bad.
We're told that VAR at Stockley Park, they are shown it in real time, so they're shown at the speed and the pace. They can judge the force, but the reason why people are influenced as to why they don't think that is a red is because of the amount of inconsistent and worse challenges that are not being given. Robertson one for Liverpool was worse. I can't remember who it was against. There was one where it was a Norwich
against Tottenham.
Yeah, against Spurs. It was against Lucas Moura, wasn't it? I think.
No. The new guy. What was his name? I can't think of it right now. Who cares? Some Spurs player.
Anyway, and the one with the Norwich player on Guendouzi, and there's been a few others as well that we've seen, and they're just not being picked up. Cresswell on Pepe was a blatant. It's not the same type of challenge, but it is the force that it's dangerous. He's not in control. He gets the ball, but he's not in control. It's a complete luck that he gets the ball.
I'll put this to everyone in the chat and you two on the panel. What were you more upset about with VAR decision? The Southampton goal, the third goal that we scored that got disallowed because it said that Chambers, I think, fouled him in the box, or the Pepe penalty. My honest decision is the Chambers foul. The goal was a legitimate goal, and VAR absolutely fucked us.
Look, and I think the bigger thing is that we rely on the system that is not being used properly, and it's making important decisions that are affecting us either positively or negatively. I think that's the bigger thing here. It's not necessarily what happens if this doesn't happen, which
Palace. Sorry.
Yeah. And then we've gotten messed up in, like I said, similar challenge. Chambers on Zaha, that was a penalty. But it's the inconsistency of it that is the most relevant part, in my opinion. It is that if you're going to do it, the whole point of this is to make it right. How are you going to get something like VAR, where you actually can go back after a situation, after the fact, and analyze what happened? And get it more wrong than you do normally. I don't. And you know what? I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but if I were to have to come up with a conspiracy, it would be that I don't think the refs want VAR in the FA, and I think that that would be the conspiracy. I'm not saying that that's the case, but I have no faith that they would do the right thing, and I think that maybe maybe they're insulted by the insinuation that we need it, and they're going to utilize it completely improperly. That's the only explanation I have, because otherwise it makes absolutely no sense why it's so poor.
I think it's got to come around to us, though. I think it's got to come around. There's so much media coverage on this, and Arsenal fans are making it well and truly heard. It kind of reminds me of the Vieira. When Vieira used to get sent off every other game, from red cards. And it was made such a thing. Everyone was like, it's a conspiracy. The refs are out to get us. He's always giving Vieira red cards. That the next season, Vieira could have almost shot someone and he wouldn't have got a red card, because they was all so scared of giving a red card because to make it look like it was a cheat. I just think that we have had so many bad decisions against us that at some point this is going to catch up on itself, and I think well maybe next season, we'll have our luck go our way.
Yeah. Very quickly, John, just before you do.
Yeah.
The one thing I want to just grab on this VAR thing is also the lack of the monitor that's not used. It's at pitch side. It's there. The ref can go over to it. One of the big things has been the fans in the actual stadium being completely unaware of what's going on. I was there during the Crystal Palace game when that goal was chalked off from Chambers, where we all thought we'd scored, and it was a joke. And all the ref has to do is to go over, because then if you think about it, the ref has seen it in that moment in a split second and made a decision. So you cannot say that decision is always going to be spot on because of human error. Someone at Stockley Park gets a second decision by looking at replays. That gives more accuracy. Surely the final say on this is the person at Stockley Park going, yeah, I think that probably deserves having a look at. Not overturn it based on my opinion. You're the referee. You're the one that should be making the decisions in the game. Go over to the monitor and have a look, because I think it should be changed based upon what you've done. So if the ref then goes over, it's the ref's decision. He's the one responsible for the match officials in the game, and they just don't use it. And now they are using it for red cards only. I mean, why come out and say we're going to use the monitor, but just in a red card?
Like Riley said, they don't want to use it for everything because they think it's fair bringing it in halfway through the season. They're going to do it next season. They've come out and said they've fucked it all up. It's
ridiculous. And look, we don't even have to look very far. Look at the Liverpool game today against United. I mean, Burnley, the Burnley game, where, against Leicester. He sticks his arm out and hits the ball in the box. Yeah. He hits it with his elbow.
Yeah, he's like,
they don't even look at it. They don't even go and look at it.
No,
not only is his arm out, he leans into the ball. It's unreal. It's unreal. Yeah. It's unreal. But I will say this, though. It feels good to be maybe this is a silver lining and a rationalization, but good to feel aggrieved by something that's not the fact that we look witless on the pitch anymore. Yeah. We didn't have the greatest game, but there were some positives there. Saka, I think that our midfield looked really decent, and and Martinelli was very bright. I think you know what? It doesn't take away from how crap VAR is, but it's good to finally have something that we're upset about that has nothing to do with, I don't even know what this team is doing anymore, which is what we've had for a season and a half now. So I'll say that.
Yeah, I want to sort of cut the VAR chat because we can go on for
That's what I was just trying to do right there.
Yeah. I think we all agree that it is being used stupidly, and it's not improved things. In fact, arguably, it's made things worse. So that's where I want to. There's one more thing from the game that I want to pick on before we talk about a few transfer things, and then look ahead to the Chelsea game. The last thing is actually something that Archie in the chat brings up. He says, Tom, I know you're a fan of Ceballos, but he is becoming another Suarez now. Shows how bad our recruitment is when Arteta is saying short loans and we can't even get that right. I want to bring it up because I'm actually writing an article on Ceballos at the moment and the issues that are surrounding him and where I sort of see things moving forwards. Now, I'm not going to give too much away about the article because I want you to read it. But Webby, if I come to you first on Ceballos, because Ozil's had a few games out now, and when I say out, I mean, well, it's like he hasn't been there effectively for me. So it doesn't feel like we've got an extra man on the pitch. Ceballos has been out since November, bad hamstring injury, but he's not being used. He was in the Man United squad. He was in the Leeds squad. He was in the Sheffield United squad on the subs bench. I was really surprised he didn't play against Leeds, to be honest. Arteta's come out and said that he's getting to the point where now he's at the sort of level he expects from fitness-wise. And he expects him to start making him make a decision about his lineup. But in yesterday's game, Guendouzi was about to come onto the pitch when we were 1-0 up. We went 1-1, and Arteta turns to Guendouzi and says, sit down, because we don't need to take Ozil off in that sense. What are you seeing that Arteta just doesn't want to use this guy, doesn't think he's ready? Because in that moment, we now need to go back and try and get a goal. In my head, I'm thinking, don't bring Guendouzi on. If anything, take Ozil off, who's done nothing, or take Xhaka off and add another little bit of attacking quality. What is it about Ceballos that you just don't quite see him using him?
This is a line player. Someone just mentioned it in the chat. Kartik, Joshi. If they've had a chat, the only reason that I can see him not using him is because he's not going to stay at Arsenal after the loan deal. And they either can't agree a deal, or they've had a chat and he doesn't want to be at Arsenal. And that's the only reason that I can give right now for him not using him, because I think he's brilliant. I think he's a fantastic player, and I think he should be on the pitch a whole load more than he is. However, saying that, if I knew for a fact that he wasn't sticking around at the club, then as a manager who wants to try and better the team every single game and get a bigger blend and bring youth into the team, why would you continue to play someone that you know you're going to lose at the end of the season? And the obvious answer is, well, you'd play him because you can get results, and then you're going to go for Champions League and da-da-da-da-da. But maybe Arteta's thinking, well, I'm going to lose him, and I've got other options which are pretty much just as good, or I think I'm bringing youth on. That's the only explanation I can give. If Ceballos was going to stay at Arsenal, and that they'd had a chat and that it was on the cards, or at least if it was just on the cards, he would be playing. He would have to, because he's such a good talent.
I mean, a lot of people in the chat aren't agreeing. They're saying that he's too weak for the EPL. He's Suarez 2.0.
I don't think we've seen enough.
I agree with you. That debut was arguably one of the best debuts I've ever seen from a player in terms of a home debut.
Yeah, last one I thought was like Alexis.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he came on against Newcastle in that away 1-0 win, but then that home game against Burnley was unreal of how good that was. I've not seen a home debut quite like that. But since then, I didn't feel like he quite influenced the game anywhere near as much. Now, in my head, the reason behind that is because when he first joined, he was still fresh from Spain, from his Real Madrid and Real Betis ideals of what the players like out there. And he came into the squad under Unai Emery that wanted to be passive, that didn't suit Ceballos' strengths, that wasn't about his style of play. And that meant that gradually Ceballos got worse and he was less influential in the game because what he wanted to do was not what Emery wanted from his team. Now with Arteta, I feel that he does fit the system. I feel that if he does play ahead of Xhaka and Torreira, not as much as the same style as Mesut Ozil, because if you look at what happens when we go into an attacking position, our 4-2-3-1 turns into a formation where we have 5 up top. We have the striker, we have the number 10, we have the 2 wingers, and then one of either fullback, depending on which side we've attacked on. That's usually what it turns into. Basically, Ozil becomes a second striker because Lacazette drops so deep, as we were talking about earlier, that those two are pretty much level with each other on the pitch. Ceballos, I don't think suits that role as much. I think he actually suits playing as a number 8 a lot better than he does a number 10. The issue with playing him as a number 8, though, next it would have to be Torreira because you can't take him out, is that you lose that security. Which Granit Xhaka, whilst a lot of people want to criticise the guy, Granit Xhaka does provide us with a lot more security than what Ceballos would in a defensive area. He also gives Torreira a lot more protection than he would have done originally. So he's a real big issue. I think he fits the system because the way that he likes to play football and his style of play, it is then just about where he fits. So, John, my question to you is before we move on to transfer is that if you bring him in, where does he go?
That's a really difficult question. And I think that the same reason why he helps our squad is the same problems that Pepe has in the squad. I think that he would help us because I think he would, in terms of possession, crisp passing and stuff, we saw that a lot from him. But where does he go? I mean, I would imagine we'd have to figure out a way to make him sort of like a Ramsey type player, like an attacking midfielder somewhere centrally. I could see him technically playing out on the wings, but I don't really think that. I think that that's a little bit dangerous now, considering how dangerous isn't the right word, but it's a little bit overloaded on that position, those positions anyway. So if he were to play, it would be some kind of like a box-to-box type role, an attacking midfield type role, which I think would suit his style of play, and I think it would give him a goal threat. It would also make us a little bit more dynamic around the box. But then the question is, who do you take out? I mean, I guess Ozil, but it doesn't look like. Do you do that knowing that? From all accounts, Ozil's going to be staying here. I mean, do we? And Webby said it best. If he's just a loan move, I mean, is that the prudent move to put him in there, knowing that he's going to be leaving soon, unless you're 100% sure that he's staying? I don't know. It's difficult.
It's really hard to talk about him because of this personnel situation that we've got. I don't feel like the defensive quality behind the midfield is good enough that you can risk playing him as a number 8. I think he is a number 8, as I've talked about in the chat box, saying he's a number 8. But if you play him as a number 8, you need to make sure that the defense is good enough to only have Torreira as the defensive-minded player in your midfield. Because if you play Ceballos, you can't play him at 10. It just doesn't, it won't work. He can't play as a second striker effectively, like Ozil becomes sometimes. And
just touching on that real quick, and I think that's an excellent point. And if you look at what had happened when Ramsey would bomb forward when we had just Xhaka in the midfield, we'd get overrun. It was all the time, and that was one of the biggest downfalls I think of having Xhaka and Ramsey, which I think is going to be a similar problem to have Xhaka and Ceballos.
Right, let's do a 5-minute transfer chat. So I'll get a response from both of you. Webby, I'll come to you first, mate. There's been a lot of speculation about a few players, mostly Levin Kazawa from PSG. There's been links to Bruno Guimaraes. The one I spoke to Vinicius, who I did a tactical breakdown with, he pronounced it correctly, but I'm still struggling. But it sounds like it would be Bruno Guimaraes, but we'll go with that. Who's a young 22-year-old Brazilian centre midfielder that looks impressive, but obviously still very raw, playing in the Brazilian league. But you say that Martinelli's coming in and absolutely smashed it, so there's devil's advocate to that. Not been linked to any real centre backs of like where it looks legitimate. Like we had links to Koulibaly at the end of December, which looked far-fetched, then Jerome Boateng, which was the complete other end of the scale, and people were not fussed by that at all. The news was that because of William Saliba coming in next season, we weren't really going to invest too heavily in that area. How are you feeling about the window, and are you confident that Arsenal will bring in any bodies by the end of January?
I forgot it was the window. Is it the window now? Is it? There's nothing going on. I didn't even. Do you know what? I'm not confident that we're going to bring people in. I've kind of written it off. January is such a bad window anyway. Nothing like the summer one. Although I would say that from what I've heard, Arteta saying his conferences and the club sort of the kind of from the rumour mill, I would suggest that we are looking for a centre back, and the fact that there's been, we can't put a name to it, and that there's nothing to go on, is generally speaking, that doesn't bother me with Arsenal, because we never ever come out publicly. Look at all the big transfers that we've made; they all come out the blue with Arsenal. We're actually really good at keeping stuff close to our chest. So I just think my gut feel is that we will do something. What that is, though, I have absolutely no idea. But you're right. That Bruno's a decent player. He looks like he's got bags of potential. So it'd be nice to see some of these players coming over. We really need to bolster the squad, because I think we're going to lose players. And whatever, even if we do, Aubameyang, Lacazette, if they go, they go. I'm really not going to shed too many tears over players that want to leave. It is what it is. Arsenal will be here long before and after that we're all gone. So it's not a problem. But we need to bolster the squad. So it's a good opportunity within the next week or so to start getting a few players in which can make an impact.
There were links to Dayoff Meccano as well. A lot of people in the chat box are bringing him up. I've just had a quick glance at the most reliable source on the internet, being Twitter, and there's not too much in terms of noise that I can see. There's just the general murmurings. Apparently, he's got a 53 million buyout clause, which is live in the summer. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. Take that with a pinch of salt. But what I know is that Arsenal are looking. Like, Arsenal are in the market. We are 100% in the market right now. We're looking at several positions. But it's not the 50, 60, 70 million players. That's not what we're in the market for, because Arsenal don't have the ability to be able to do that right now. They did spend a lot. Yeah, we bought Pepe, and I know that we only spent 25 million of that in the summer. And I know that we did a video on it during the summer where basically it boiled down to Arsenal have spent nearly next to nothing because of what they were bringing in. But that's based on just assumptions of how much money we're making if you believe the rumours and that. But Arsenal have a big issue because our wage bill is massive. We've got players on huge amounts of wages, and I don't think in the January window we can afford to be going for these big deals, and we can't. And we're not the only club. Like there are loads of clubs that prefer not to spend loads and loads of money in the January window because it's not economically viable. You're looking at Manchester United at the moment, and they're really struggling to get Bruno Fernandes over the line at the moment because Sporting are just turning around and saying, well, yeah, we said 40 million last summer, but now we want 80 million. And I mean, they're the ball's in their court at the end of the day. They don't have to sell him. He's under contract for a fair while yet. And they will struggle to get him out of Portugal if they don't put the big money down. And Arsenal just don't have the capability to turn around to RB Leipzig and say, here's 60, 70 million for Upamecano. Let's take him now. It's not going to happen. So I do know that we're in the market for a couple of players, but it is just loans, free deals, or at the very, very most, this Bruno Guimaraes deal has legs, but it would need to be structured. And whether or not the Vittoria Perennes are up for that, who knows? I know that Lyon have now come in for him as well, and there's competition from them and from Benfica that was very, very heavy as well. So he's not someone that I think will be going on the cheap or without a fight from other clubs. Last point, before we move on to Chelsea, is Kazawa. Thoughts on him? Because that seems like it's got real legs to it. A left back, we've got Kolasinac, we've got Tierney. They've both got fitness issues. Does it make sense? And is he someone that you would have been happy with?
I think he's all right from what I've seen, which isn't loads, but I think he's all right. He doesn't really blow my world, I've got to be honest. I'm surprised we're looking at a left back. Given the fact that we got Tierney, I know we've got injuries, but centre back to me would have been the main one. If look at the end of the day, guys, Arteta's the man, isn't he? He's going to save everything. So if he thinks that he fits, then he fits. But no, for me, he's a solid player, but he's not a world beater.
No, it is. And it's Atletico Perennes, not Vittoria. I was watching Vittoria, and that's why that stuck in my head. And they are still awful for this season. I mean, they did one over us on us in the Europa League, but yeah, Atletico. So many Atleticos and athletics, and but yeah. Last thing then is Chelsea. Before we wrap things up, John. I mean, I'm just going to ask for your thoughts ahead of it and then a scoreline so we can wrap things up. But are you confident they're a Chelsea side that are pretty much as bad as us right now? So it could go either way.
Yeah, I think because of that fact, I'm confident. I think that we can get something from this game. I think that, I think that team is going to feel really hard done by the performance and the results at Sheffield, and
when we last played them and we were robbed.
Yeah. Look. Here's the thing. At the end of the day, this team did not play well enough, and I think Webby said it best. Like, putting aside all this conspiracy and this VAR thing, a draw was the right result. So they can't really feel too aggrieved about that. But at the same token, I think that Arteta knows, and I think they know that they can do better than they did against Sheffield. And I don't think there's a better time to play Chelsea right now, touch wood, because I know me saying that now is not going to bode over too well. But I do feel that because of where they are right now, I think that the mistakes that we were making are ones that are identifiable versus before, where if you would ask me this last season, I think that it would have been like, yeah, I think that there are all these problems, but there's so much going on that's wrong with this team. It's hard to say what needs to be done to fix this. But right now it's clear. I think that we need to be a little bit more solid in the midfield. I think we need to get more shots on goal and actually be a little bit more clinical in taking our chances. I think we've shored up the defense decently enough so that I don't think that Chelsea should offer us that much of an issue. That being said, the games are coming really quick, Tuesday, and we just played. So that might be a factor. And, look, they're going to feel aggrieved as well. They just lost to Newcastle. Yeah. So look, it's hard to say. I think we're going to get a result from this win, though, that ultimately.
Yeah, Premier League is awful this season.
It's really bad. I mean, bad. United lost, Chelsea lost, City dropped points. City drew to, it's just Palace. Yeah. It's just all. Besides Liverpool, who have won 21 games now.
They're raving about Leicester. Leicester have just been as good as they usually are. I think they're just beating the teams they should beat. And a couple of games, they've got some scouts, but the other teams have just been utterly shocking. Yeah. Really, really shocking this season. And it's been a big, big missed opportunity for Arsenal to get back into the top four because the other teams around them, like every single week we're going, the league's a write-off. But when you look at the table, a couple of wins on the bounce, and if the other teams keep dropping points, all of a sudden it completely changes. And I mean, if we pick 3 points up against Chelsea, that is, I mean, you could arguably turn around and say that there's once again a small chance, but it's crazy how bad the teams have been this season, including ourselves. And maybe it's a big missed opportunity. And then people turn around and say, look at the Premier League now. If Liverpool go unbeaten, it's the best Premier League ever. And you're thinking, it's not really. So yeah, it's arguably the worst City under Pep Guardiola we've seen this season, and the other teams have been fairly poor. Webby, finish us off with your prediction and scoreline for Chelsea as well, fella.
I don't think we'll lose. I think my prediction is 2-2. But I reckon the players would be gunning for it. I mean, we should have beaten them the other week, and the players will know that. If it weren't for a slip up from Leno, we would have beaten them. So we smashed them off the park first half. Unfortunately, the second half we dropped. But I think that the players in the dressing room will be going into this game very, very confident. Although we lost the last game, if we'd genuinely been the worse team and that we'd have got played off the park, then we'd have been going into this game thinking we was going to get a hiding. But no, I think we'll be up for it. And it's a shame that we ain't got Aubameyang at the moment, but it's not the end of the world. I think we could do it. We just need Laka to turn his game around. Really, Laka can get his shooting boots on, then all will be right in the world again.
I agree with you. Peter Renner says Arsenal 1, Chelsea 1, VAR 7. Big Gunner D says 3-1 Chelsea if Mike Dean's the ref. Archie says 2-1 Chelsea. Stan Kroenke says 0-0. Matt Hales says 3-1 Chelsea, that he's still Arteta out. Unbelievable. We will lose 2-1, says Kartik. Danny from Berkham Wonderland says 3-3. Arsenal Granny says 2-1. Josh Gunners Forever says 2-2. Just Add Chemicals says 4-1. Pepe hat-trick and a David Luiz free kick. Wow, what a game that would be. Kyrie or Kiri, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, says 1-1 if I'm optimistic, 2-1 Chelsea if I'm honest. That's pretty much where my head's at. I'm thinking that if we can, if I just can't see us scoring like at the moment. Like we're just not a team that scores a lot of goals, and defensively we're flawed. So I'm going to go 1-1. I think that is optimistic. Chelsea just at Stamford Bridge have always had our number every single time. I can't remember the last time we went there and won. I think it was the 5-3 where Van Persie got that hat-trick. I can't quite remember a league game where we went there and won last. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
How many games have been there, though?
Yeah, true. I mean, he's had one chance and lost it at home. So, but no, that's harsh. I'm going to go with 1-1. If I'm optimistic, 1-0. A very, very scruffy last-minute winner like Newcastle. By the way, did everyone see the video that you posted in the chat, John, of that guy that got hit in the nuts by Matt Ritchie's corner flag?
That's hilarious. Yeah. So just if you don't know what he's talking about, there's a video that someone posted from the stands at the Newcastle game where it's really hard to tell, but after he scored the goal, someone takes the flag and they chuck. Yeah, he takes the flag and he chucks it into the stand, and apparently hits this guy right, where this old guy, and then he's just sitting there like doubled over on the ground.
He's not in a good way. Absolutely brilliant that was. So if you haven't seen that, I'm sure it's on Twitter somewhere. Just type in Matt Ritchie corner flag, it'll probably come up. That's going to round us off for today, though. I really hope you've enjoyed the show. If you have, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Webby, much appreciated, fella.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for all the comments, the live comments from everyone, and have a great week.
Awesome. Apparently, Matt Ritchie kicked the flag, said Just Add Chemical. So, I mean, if
that's even better. That's even better.
He's a real footballer. He's kicking the flag. That's brilliant. John, always a pleasure, mate.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me on again.
No problem. You can check the boys out on Twitter. You can find Matt at Webby AFC182 and John at 305cast. We will see you again very, very soon. If you'd like to become a member and get access to some exclusive content, just go on your desktop or your Android and click that join button to find out what that's all about. We will see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.